Right, today we will reflect on SD 51.5, the Dukkha Upanyata Sutta, the tools found out for oneself discourse. This is from Anguttara 2.5, A 2.5, the Book of Two, Sutta number 5. The sutta has got an alternative title. It's called Purisa Dhamma Sutta, the discourse on a person's strength. Now, here we see a very interesting Pali word, upanyata. Upa is a very common prefix. It's very close to English, meaning up to, up close. Nyata means that which is known. So here is a special word meaning something that we know for ourselves, by ourselves. So here the Buddha is going to talk about two aspects of his knowledge, of his knowing, of his awakening, and let's find out how this will help us in our practice. There are lots of notes here, I think over 10 pages of it. You will notice some of the suttas are very short. This is from the Anguttara, but there is a lot we can learn. So this is where I put together quite a lot of notes here, which you can study in your own time. The translation is on page 41. The tools found out for myself discourse, for oneself or for myself. The sutta starts right away with the Buddha speaking. Bhikshus, I have found out for myself two things. Okay, so you notice here the sutta title comes from this first line, found out for myself. One, non-contentment regarding wholesome states, and two, unrelenting striving. Now, this is where you find in the Anguttara there are lots of what are called thematic teachings according to themes. So here the theme is basically how to practice, what is that you should practice. So let's examine these two sentences. These are just the two key sentences in this sutta here. The first one in Pali is asantutita kusalesu dhammesu. So here's where the Buddha has used a negative term in a positive way. Asantutita. Santosa means contentment. Santuti or is the adjective. But here you have the ta ending, which makes it an abstract noun. And then there is the na particle added in front. In other words, asantutita, non-contentment, discontent even. But here we cannot translate it as discontent because discontent has a negative connotation. Here the meaning is not satisfied with something. In other words, it's not enough to do something up to a point. It's not enough, right? So the translation non-contentment is much better. Or you can say, of course you can also say dissatisfaction is quite a neutral term. This idea of not enough is a very common theme in the Buddha's instruction to the monks, especially in the teaching of what is called the progressive stages. For example, You can take the 3 trainings, you can take the various jhanas. The Buddha will say, okay, you begin your practice by keeping the precepts. But then, after describing the precept, will say that's not enough. Okay, you should do more. So the more is the next stage. That is to meditate, to do mental training. And then the Buddha describes what are mental training, all the different kinds of meditation, stage by stage. And for each stage, the Buddha will say, okay, this is how you do it, but it's not enough. This next stage, this is not enough. It goes on and on and on. And then comes to wisdom. You say, okay, this is first kind of wisdom, and these are the various kinds of super knowledges. Only when it comes to that last stage, where the knowledge of the Arahat is described, then he will say, there's nothing more beyond this. Right? There's nothing more beyond this. This is very important. In other words, once Arahathood has been attained, that is the end of the journey. That's the goal. That's the full awakening. Once you're awakened, you don't have to awaken anymore. So this is a very important statement. That is why we cannot accept the later teachings which talk about, the Buddha needs to get further awakening. The Arahats still have to be awakened. These are all very serious wrong views which we cannot countenance, we should reject. So even this simple sentence here, non-contentment regarding the wholesome states, has a very powerful meaning here. So the key idea here refers to wholesome states. Kusalesu dhammesu. This is locative in the wholesome states. Of course, here wholesome states refer to the various positive mental states that one gets through meditation, especially. And so here the Buddha says it's not enough to get all those different levels of jhanas, different levels of formless states. You've got to go on practicing it. Of course, in a way, there are a few shortcuts, if you like. For example, if an arahat attains only first jhana, or rather a person attains first jhana, and then from there it becomes an arahat, then of course that is enough. It doesn't have to go further. Of course, that doesn't mean he need not cultivate, if he likes, further after the awakening. For example, the arahat can, if he wants, continue meditating and improve his meditation as possible. But as far as his awakening is concerned, he is already awakened, is an arahat. Then the part where I mentioned it is not enough is represented in the second sentence, unrelenting striving. Appati wanita padanasming. Okay, appati wanita. In other words, not giving up, not turning back. So you can see here the Buddha is saying, number one, strive on to build up those positive states in you. Number one, keep your precepts pure, keep your precepts well as possible for a layperson. It also includes examining yourself when you have difficulties, when the precepts are broken, to examine what happened and how to strengthen yourself. That is not to give up, in other words. That's the second sentence here. And then you build up your meditation, okay? And then you attain certain states, and then you may kind of have difficulties later on, but you don't give up. You go on building it up, and so on. Now, always remember, we may have quite high standards for ourselves when we meditate. We say, I want to progress further, I want to attain this state, that state. That is well and good, but always remember the Buddha also tells us that you can never get those wholesome states by wishing, by worrying. Okay, so it's just like breathing. You don't say, "Oh, how am I going to get my next breath?" You don't have to say that. You just breathe. It has nothing to do with thinking. So meditation also is like that. It has nothing to do with thinking. We don't say, "Oh, I wish it's like this, I wish to be like that." You just do it basically. It's just like running a race also. You just run, you just do it. You put in all the effort you can, unrelenting. And when you do this, you just move ahead. And then after you have finished, then you review. There is such a thing called review knowledge. And then you look back and say, okay, how did I do? That's the time you can ask, how did I do? Okay, first, how did I do well? And remember that. That helps you to kind of, to inspire you, feel good, feel happy. And then examine those areas where you didn't do well, and then try to work out some strategy. Right? So this is all done at the end of it by, in terms of what's called review knowledge, by examining incidentally, step by step, what that has happened. So you deal with that, and from there you build up the next. It's just like someone building a house. You build the foundations stage by stage. You don't say, okay, I built this foundation, how is my second floor going to be like? But you have not done the first floor yet. So you just build step by step. In fact, if you notice how these workers who build houses do, they are really unrelenting, they are really hardworking, they do everything step by step, brick by brick. And sometimes they take 2 years to finish the building. So you can imagine how patiently, how unrelenting they work. So meditation is like that too. Then the Buddha goes on to say, indeed, bhikshus, I strove unrelentingly, resolving, willingly I will let only skin, sinews and bones remain, let my body dry up, and flesh and blood too. There will be no end in my effort until I have won what can be won by personal strength, personal effort, personal striving. Now notice here, there's a lot of this word personal. In other words, we make the effort, we can make the effort. This is the wonderful thing about the Buddha's teaching. He is saying basically, it is within the power of a human being to discover the truth, to see the highest in our life, and to reach that highest, and to be free from suffering. It is possible. We don't need any kind of outside agency. Those are all imaginary ideas that they are invented by some priest or some powerful people who want to control others. Here is you through your own effort, you understand how your mind works, and from there you build yourself up. And notice here too, we have the idea of a hero here. As we well know, the Buddha was a Sakya. He belongs to a warrior caste, a warrior class. So he's a man of great courage. So here you can see his courage in not giving up. So he's saying, even if my body were to dry up, even if I were to die, I will not give up this meditation. This is towards the end of his quest when he was nearing awakening. Or rather, you might say, he has understood himself to a certain extent. He knows that it's just a matter of time he's going to awaken. So he did not give up. Section 3, the Buddha continues, bhikshus, it was by diligence that I attained awakening. It was by diligence that I attained the supreme security from bondage. So here the Buddha is reminding us his diligence. He's not saying prayer or any kind of magical situation or some kind of divine providence. It's diligence. And this is a very important term in Buddhism. Diligence or heedfulness, meaning you go on doing it, not giving up, being mindful and doing it correctly, and that is what will bring you your spiritual success. And then, so that he speaks for himself first. He says, well, this is what I did. And then, it is as if he's telling us, now I've done this, so you can do it too. So this is the next two paragraphs. If you too, bhikshus, would strive unrelentingly, resolving, willingly I will let only skin, sinews and bones remain, let my body dry up, and flesh and blood too, there will be no end in my effort until I have won what can be won by personal strength, personal effort, personal striving. You too, bhikshus, will in no long time at all, right here and now, having realized it for yourself through direct knowledge, attain and dwell in the supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which sons of family rightly go forth from the household life into homelessness. So here we see the aim of the goal of renunciation is to attain awakening. So here again, the Buddha reminds us in direct and almost dramatic terms, if you like, that he's basically saying, I have done it, you can do it. So this is the idea that the Buddha is a human being, so therefore we too can do what he has done, despite the fact that what he has attained can be said to be superhuman or even the divine. So what he effectively is teaching us that you don't have to go up to heaven to see the divine. All these are mind-made. Goodness is a mental quality, a quality of the heart. Therefore, we can cultivate this within ourselves. Who is the one who has been telling us God is up there in heaven, goodness is out there in the rituals? These were the priests. These were the people who, they may be religious, but they do not understand this true reality. And they were kind of turning all this spirituality into rituals. In other words, they have taken over the role, and by saying that you don't have to do it, we'll do it for you. But it doesn't work that way. You can't tell a patient, say, don't worry, I will get well for you. I mean, it's just ridiculous, to say the least. If you're a doctor, you will tell the patient, well, I have healed myself, I am healthy, you too can heal yourself, you too can be healthy. This is the way you do it, this is the medicine, so take it, then you'll be well too. So the Buddha is like that. And then the conclusion, therefore, bhikshus, train yourself thus. Willingly, I will let only skin, sinews, and bones remain. Let body dry up. Let my body dry up, and flesh and blood too. There will be no end in my effort until I have won what can be won by personal strength, personal effort, personal striving. Thus, bhikshus, you should train yourselves. So we can see here again, it's a call to practice. Let us now close with a short reflection. The suttas are there to remind us to walk the path, to be inquisitive, to learn, to practice, to change and to be happy and to inspire others. And if you can do this, then the suttas have really served their purpose and you have preserved the Buddha's teaching. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. By the power of this karma, may we be blessed with courage and wisdom to aspire to at least stream winning in this life itself. And may we be well and happy meantime to study, practice and realize the Buddha's teaching. By the same token, by the power of the three jewels, may our families and loved ones and friends and those who are practicing the Dhamma too be well and happy and see the true teaching in this life itself. And by the power of the three jewels too, may those who have lost their way or have difficulties to return to the true path and see the true teaching for themselves in this life itself. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.